Hey everyone, I'm Jordan Smith with VSI by Boss Snowplow, and in this video I'm going to go over how to set up your VSI legacy brine maker. So obviously the first thing we're going to do with the brine maker is set it where it's going to be installed. It's very easy to do with the front integrated fork pockets, which can be lifted with a forklift or a loader with pallet forks. The next thing you need to do is hook it up to power. This system requires 220 volt single phase 30 amp circuit. The first thing you're going to do when wiring this up, we recommend hiring a licensed electrician for this work, is connect into the junction box of the motor. You're going to want to make sure that they wire the motor for reverse rotation. That would mean connecting the red and yellow wires and the blue and black wires to each hot lead of the 220 volt circuit along with the ground wire. From there, your electrician will run either in conduit or in flex line up into this junction box here. We provide the junction box with the waterproof cover. However, we do not provide the switch that goes inside the box. Your electrician will need to provide a 220 volt 2-pole switch to put inside this box in order to run the brine maker and turn it on and off. In addition, you'll see this wire lead that's already coming into the top of the box. This is for the digital salinity reading system. This system can run on either 110 or 220 volts. Either way works fine. Inside of this box, it converts down to DC power. So either way is fine, whatever is easier for electrician. Typically, we'll recommend wiring this in with the switch to the always hot leads. That way, when you turn your pump and motor off, you're still getting an accurate salinity reading. Otherwise, if you wire this into the switch side, the digital readout on your smart device will turn off every time you turn off your pump and motor. Once the system's all wired up, now it's time to install your plumbing. One key thing to remember that'll make life easier on this legacy brine maker is that any plumbing lines that go into the bottom side of the pump, right here, are the suction side of the system. Any plumbing lines that are connected to the top side of the pump coming out of this hose are the pressure side of the system. So the first thing we're going to do is connect our brine storage tanks. The brine storage tanks must connect to this longest connection point here. The reason for that is because we not only need to be able to pump out of that line, we also need to be able to pull back in from that line for our truck fill feature. The valve next to the brine line is typically reserved for brine additive. So if you have a second tank or second set of tanks that you're going to plumb into your system so you can fill your trucks with blended brine, this is the best place to plumb those in. The third valve is either for a second type of additive or a place where you can plumb in your water. If you are plumbing your water into this valve, please note local regulations as they may require some kind of backflow prevention device. Other options for getting water into your system include putting an air gap fill system from the top of the brine maker. Regardless, we're going to need a way to get high flow water into the system, whether it be directly from your municipal water supply or from a water flow tank. So again, this third valve is typically reserved for water or potentially a second blend or additive. On the top side of your pump, the main functions are the truck fill valve here. So if you are going to be filling a truck with your brine system, this is where you're connecting the truck fill hose. This lever here is what's called an air purge system. This has to be connected to either shop air or an air storage tank in order to purge the lines after you're done filling a truck so that they don't spill on the ground when you disconnect them. This next valve here is what actually turns the truck fill on and off. Anytime a valve is perpendicular to the line, it's turned off. Anytime it's turned parallel, it's turned on. This cartridge here is a filter for your truck fill. So in case there's any debris in your bulk brine, this filter will catch any of that before it gets into your spray system. It is a serviceable filter, does not need to be replaced. It's simply a stainless steel mesh filter. Simply twist off this cartridge, take out the stainless steel, clean it out in a sink or a bucket of water, put it back in, and continue on your way. It'll catch all the large debris and keep it from getting into your spray system. This next valve here on the pressure side is your brine pump out. So when you're mixing a batch of brine in your system and your digital salinity reader on your smart connected device with the VSI spray control app gets to 23.3%, now your brine's done, it's time to pump it out to our storage tanks. In order to do that, we're going to use this opening here. Opening that valve starts pumping the brine out to your storage tanks. Once all the brine's pumped out, you'll hear the pump start starving for liquid. When that happens, close the valve and either shut it off or start filling again with water to make the next batch. This next valve over here is your agitation line. So when you open this valve, that's what's actually going to start mixing your brine inside of your tank. So this plumbing goes to the agitation bar which powers the jet agitation, which pulverizes the salt and makes it into salt brine. In order to actually move liquid between tanks, there's multiple different valve configurations you need to know. So if we are pulling brine from our outdoor tanks and filling our trucks, we would need to open this line on our manifold, connect this line to our truck, and open this line in order to fill our truck with salt brine. If we were then going to put additive in our truck, we would close the brine valve, open the additive valve, our truck fill valve would still be open, and now we would top off our system with additive. If we're mixing a batch of brine and we're plumbed into this line right here, obviously to fill with water, we would open that valve to fill with water until the system's full. Make sure to shut off your water when you're done filling so you don't overfill the system and overflow onto the ground. When plumbed into here, there is no protection against overfilling besides visually watching the fill level of the system. The final important point here is this last valve that goes into our batch tank. So this is the suction line for our batch tank. We want to make sure that that's only open when we're mixing or pumping out brine. If that's left open when we're doing our truck fill, whatever is inside this tank is going to end up in our truck, or if this tank is empty, you're going to end up pulling air into your system and your truck's going to fill very slowly or possibly not at all. Now that you understand the basic setup and operation of this system, we suggest that you try making your first batch. Keep in mind that the first batch is going to take longer than most of the other ones. This is because the salt that you're loading into your mixing hopper is going to be completely dry and not pre-saturated or pre-broken down. So don't be alarmed if your first batch time takes 75 to 80% longer than all of your subsequent batch times. If you ever notice a loss in performance or a lengthening of your mixing time, it potentially means it's time to clean your system out. So what can happen is, because the jets inside this system are at the bottom, if the bottom of your mixing hopper starts filling with undissolvable solids, because salt does have a fair amount of impurities in it, what actually ends up happening is that your jets are pulverizing an undissolvable slurry at the bottom of the tank and not actually pulverizing the salt. So if you get to a point where you're seeing increased batch times, look at cleaning your system out. So now that you understand the basics of setting up your VSI Legacy Brine Maker, we hope that you can get started with great success. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out and we'd be happy to help.